and subsequent subordination document required by the primary lender with Corpus Christi Huntwick Avenue LP, commonly known as Palo Verde Senior Apartments.
Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Buxton, Assistant Director of Planning and Economic Development now. With me today is Interim Assistant City Manager Dan McGinn. We have Matthew Ames, Project Manager with the development team at Danco. Scott Jones is here. He's President and an engineer at the local DCCM. And then WebEx, we have Chris Dart, who's president of Danco Community. He leads all development for Danco. And then we also have PJ Simpson, who's a partner with the general contractor of Block Communities. They have offices in Houston and Louisiana. Can I get slide number 2, please? Oh, I'm sorry. So Palo Verde Senior Apartments is being developed by Danco Communities. It's located at 5501 Huntwick. It's in District 5. It sits on 3 acres. It's zoned CG2, which is general commercial, which allows for multifamily. The city adopted area development plan does state mixed use. We're proposing 80 units, 75 of which will be low income and 5 market. The development costs are $24 million. Costs have increased and low-income housing tax credit equity pricing has decreased since the city first considered this project, which causes a gap. The City of Corpus Christi has $1 million of home funds, Home Investment Partnership Act funds, that's federal funds committed to the project. And the team is requesting $1 million from Type B. And on the map there, you can see that big white building next to the yellow square. That's the HEB on Saratoga and Staples, if that helps you orient. This is a copy of a page from the Southside Area Development Plan. You can see the site area there in black, and the Area Development Plan does have it outlined for mixed use. Palo Verde Senior Apartments is going to be 80 units, 75 of which are affordable. All units are 1 bath, but there's a mix of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom. On the affordable side, there's 38 1 bedroom and 37 2 bedrooms. In total, divided up by income, there's 8 units for persons at 30% of the area median income. 15 at 50% of the area median income, and 60 at the 60% line. There's 52 units. So who are we going to serve? 30% households, and because these are senior households, we used 1 and 2 person households. At 30% area median income, a 1-person household is at $17,400. A 50% household at 1 person is about $29,000 a year. 60% AMI is about $35,000 a year. What that translates into rents, and these rents include utilities, it's plus tenant paid utilities. At 30% at a 1 bedroom, the rent would be $465. At 50% area median income, it's $775. And at 60% area median income, it's $930. And then of course that all translates over into the 2% or 2-person and 2-bedroom column. Here is a rendering of the front of the property. This is an updated site plan. The parking lot faces Huntwick, or is on the Huntwick side. There's a walking path and park on the back side. It is a 3-story elevator building. So what have the sources and uses looked like from March, when the city first evaluated the project for a resolution of support, to today? You can see the change in sources and uses. The increase in development cost is primarily in the hard costs. There is also an increase in the financing and a little bit in the reserve. Part of what's driving the change in the hard cost is that they have added the 5 market rate units, which increased the construction costs, but at the same time you'll notice that there's been a change in the Citibank primary loan. those 5 units of market the development team was able to increase the debt capacity by over $2 million. The development team can answer additional questions. There was a big increase in the deferred developer fee too of over $400,000. So construction costs from estimates to real pricing. When the applications are put together for low-income housing tax credits, that's usually before a contractor is giving hard prices. So using the historical data from late '24 into early 2025 made up the estimates. After engaging the contractor and advancing design, receiving real contractors and market pricing, costs went up and tax credit equity went down. I'm going to talk a little bit more about tax credit equity in a minute. Market timing, the development team has seen construction costs continue to rise due to tariffs, labor market, and market material volatility, got it. Design efficiencies, they did do some value add, and were able to bring the prices down from October to December. And then the current numbers reflect real pricing based on today's construction market and not historical estimates. So how does tax credit equity pricing impact a project? The project was awarded over $19 million in low-income housing tax credit equity. It's actually about $1.9 million in tax credits. The project, for every year it's in compliance for 10 years, will get that. So it'll total $19,481,000. You apply that towards the percentage that the limited partner or the tax credit investors own, which is 99.99%, times the credit sales price of 82%, and that's how you get your equity of almost $16 million. Well, at the time the deal was put together, the tax credit equity pricing was closer to 82 cents on the dollar. Today, we're at 75 cents, which brings us to the gap of almost $1.4 million. It's the federal landscape, the interest in the tax credits and the value of the tax credit has decreased. So what actions did the developer take to bridge the gap? They're deferring additional developer fees. They did some value engineering. They changed up the unit mix. They added those 5 market rate units. They're seeking a parking variance, which Planning and Economic Development is in full support of due to low-income seniors. The need for parking spaces is not as high. They've made some common area efficiencies. They've done some streamlining and reduced the common areas. And then despite these efforts, the project still requires $1 million, which is why we're here today for Type B funds. And the development team and I are here for any questions that you have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
So just to confirm, this project's already been approved through City Council as a approved project, or is that still pending?
No, that it is approved. So the City Council provided a resolution of support for their Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs tax credit application. Right. That was in February of 2025, and then in August of 2025, the $1 million in home funds was approved. I will say we will have to come back in January and amend the budget to put these funds in to actually get them appropriated into the Type B budget. But at this point, having the public hearing and moving it forward allows them to continue and lock in their pricing and move forward with their other funding sources.
I'm getting caught up as well. So this $1 million additional dollars, that's in the form of a loan?
It is a loan. It's fee simple. It's simple interest. Over the course, it's usually amortized over 40 years, and it's payable through net cash flow in accordance with a waterfall.
And
Thank you.
In addition to that, there will be documents as we move forward in the new year from the bank, additional documents that we will be asking the board to consider and to execute related to this project. So this is just the beginning, just the first start of it.
Can we go back to the site layout slide?
Can you turn the power, thank you. Here we go.
So Huntwick Avenue is a pretty busy street. It's hard to tell, is there a sidewalk on the property line there?
So there is Huntwick Avenue is partially maintained by the city of Corpus Christi, and it is partially the responsibility of HEB. The city portion of the sidewalk runs about halfway into the site. The developer is going to be responsible for continuing the sidewalk from where the city leaves off into the HEB. So there's full pedestrian access over into HEB and that pharmacy, because being that close to the grocery store is a big sell for the property.
Okay.
No transport, and there's also a bus stop just outside on Staples.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were going to have a lot of foot traffic on Huntwick, because that is very busy at 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then can we go back to the expense page? Or the budget of the project? Sorry.
Oh,
There.
There we go.
Okay, so you're saying there was an increase in the deferred developer fee? Mm-hmm. But you're saying they've deferred it further out?
So the developer fee has not changed, the amount that they are deferring. So in a low-income housing tax credit deal, they will get paid out of the development fee that's $2.4 million. They're actually deferring over $1 million of it over the life of the project. The low-income housing tax credit requires that that be paid off within 15 years out of available cash flow. So they'll get that, the 1032514 over the life of the project. And then after that, the cash flow loans will take place, the home loans and the type B loan. But TDHCA rules that would be paid off and treated as a loan as well.
Okay. And then have we gotten any additional information as to why the hard costs are going up almost 20% from initial
So
estimates?
I think PJ's on the line, and so is Chris Dart, but I do know adding those 5 units was a portion of it, and PJ and Chris can address the rest, and maybe Scott, but are they on the WebEx? Scott, or Chris, do you want to start?
Sure, I can start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Dart, President, Danco Communities. I think Jennifer hit it. I mean, there's been a number of things that have increased the cost, but as the project, like she said in the presentation, we originally sized the project using historical data costs, and typically when you're preparing your application, it was in the month of January, February, March, and those months of 2025, we're using numbers from 2024 to size the project. Well, once we got an award, we really started to evolve the plans and specs, and we brought Block in as our builder partner on the project to begin to dig in and get real pricing as where the market is today. So that was part of it, is that the sizing was just a little short from what the market is today. And then in addition to that, we were able to, there was a lot of common area within the design that the architect started out with, that we were able to shrink that common area down and add an additional 5 units. But the cost per square foot overall went down for those units because they were able to fit within the building envelope that we had already set up. So that allowed us to leverage additional debt for the project, which was a plus. But it also did increase the hard cost of construction as well. So that contributed to the overall cost increase. But it allowed us to leverage more hard debt for the loan, so it was a net benefit. If that makes sense.
Okay. And how much common area? I mean, there's a pretty large amount on the layout. Sorry, I think we're all having a Monday. But how much common area is there? Do we know? Because that's certainly an attribute to the project, and I do understand that increases the costs.
We still have sufficient common area. We have a lobby, a manager's unit, an open area of community space for gathering and lounging. They just had an excessive size common area in the original design that we corrected more to what the market would be, and brought it within what we say would be the standards.
I'm going to say, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but roughly 13,000 square foot.
That sounds right. I mean, that chart you showed between the square foot, total square foot, gross square foot, and the
Yeah,
unit square foot would be the difference. Yeah.
There's a total of 71,000, give or take, gross square foot, and 58,000, give or take, of residential square foot. So the math is about 13,000 square foot in common space. But that includes hallways, elevators, front desk, any sort of community space.
Okay. And then on the change in the tax credit rate, when did that change occur?
It has happened since, I'm going to say, January 20th, 2025, and continues to drop.
Okay, so when it was when the home funds were approved in August, were we at I think you said 75 cents?
So there was not a quote on the prices. They were still using the original, where am I? Where's my tax credit equity? There was still not a firm number. I think we were estimating about 80 cents in August, as opposed to the 82, because we knew that it was dropping. 75 is pretty low.
Okay, and so at what point is this 75 cents locked in where there's not going to be another shortfall? So
with this approval, the low-income housing tax credit investors will feel more comfortable locking it in. Without this funding source, the tax credit equity is probably not going to lock in, but we're sitting pretty good in terms of their commitment if these funds are approved.
Okay, and so it isn't that it could continue to fall and there could continue to be shortfalls. It's at this point then the project would be moving forward with this funding of the gap.
Chris, do you want to answer that, please?
Yeah, I mean, the market has rapidly dropped from, it's really been July when there was a bill that passed in Washington that had really changed the 50% test and increased the amount of tax credit equity in the market. And so since then, the investment community's reacted to that. There's more tax credits than there are investors, and so the price has continued to decline. We have 6 projects right now that are in various phases, but that are getting tax credit equity partners. And the lowest pricing that we have gotten is 75 cents. We had one project at 76 cents and one at 78 cents, depending on where they're at in the marketplace. But we're confident that we can get 75% and won't continue to drop.
And Corpus Christi is not considered a prime market, so we're usually on the lower end of that.
Okay, so that's why we're at that bottom
Yes,
half.
ma'am.
Is there a scenario in which those rates could go up?
I don't see so, no.
No? Okay, all right.
Not likely.
It would be, it is not probable. It is possible, but it is not probable.
Great, that's the answer I'm looking
There you
for. Thank you. Okay, thank you, those answer.
I have a question. What about on the hard cost? Is there any probability that it can go up again? Or when does that get stopped?
The increases?
Like on the hard cost, like can that move again? Because it went from March to whenever it got approved, it went 19% higher.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to address that, please?
Yeah, I mean, the project will go out to bid. Roughly, we're anticipating March of 2026, it will go out to formal bid. But a block construction has a lot of experience in this. They have active projects going now, which is why we brought them on the team. And they're deeply involved in the market, and they have sized the construction costs. And I think they're pretty confident that they're going to be able to hit that and achieve that. And we do also have construction contingency in the project as well that could withstand some slight increase. But I think we're sized properly at this point.
Okay, and what will happen if it actually there's a change on it and it keeps going up, like, what's going to happen then with the gap?
Well,
So,
ultimately, we would, oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
no, you go ahead, Chris.
Ultimately, we would, work to either fund, part of our contingency in the project is we have hard cost construction contingency, which is sized at 700,000 roughly. And then we also have the developer fee, which is there for cost overruns and the potential that the costs go up. So, in a scenario that the costs went up extremely higher, which we don't anticipate at all, given that the work that Block's doing, that we would either not close the transaction and give back all the funds that were allocated, or we would use part of our developer fee and or contingency to balance it out.
Okay, thank you.
So if I understand it, this project has not yet gone out for bid.
It has not.
Go ahead. PJ, was that you?
No, it's Chris, but
Oh, sorry.
PJ could speak.
The general contractor has come up with their estimates.
This is an estimate, but when do you anticipate this actually going out for bid?
Chris said March.
Do you have a date in March?
Not at this point. I mean, we're closing the transaction by the end of April, so usually we pick 30 days out, so towards mid-March.
Okay. So you are requesting 3% simple interest over 40 years, not amortized?
The interest is not amortized? No. It does not, I'm sorry, it does not accrue.
So yeah,
It doesn't amortize.
it is at 3, and you are requesting it to be at 3%
Yes, that's what we,
over 40 years?
payable out of net cash flow. And that's what we've been doing out of the home loans and other type B projects.
Yes,
for the
that's
last-
what, I'm just, each
Yes, ma'am.
project is its own special snowflake. So, and if I look at this, what level lien are we and the city's funds in this project?
Second and third.
Second and third, second for what, third for what?
We can go either way.
Okay, second is better than third.
You bet.
Then the other thing I would like to ask is, so we've done projects with y'all before. And so, and this you might need to, we might need your colleagues to speak up and in, but on these projects, how many are there again? Could you remind me?
What do you mean?
How many projects have y'all done with this city?
With type B?
With type B or with city funds?
There are three type B funded projects. Fish Pond, which might have been type B or type A, has some in it. And then Palms at Morris was approved last year and is under construction. And then this would be the third.
Okay, and are there any others that you have city funds?
Yes,
beside-
many.
Many, okay. And of those that you have city funds and type B, how many of them have been constructed since, this year? Do you have an estimate of how many of those?
We are able to do about one a year because we can access the low-income housing tax credits, only one project a year due to our region's allocation. But we share our allocation with Victoria, and there was 2 recent years where we lost
Okay.
2 Victoria sites. So generally speaking, it's one project a year around 70, 72, 75 units.
And when did this start? When did y'all start working in this region?
The home funds have been around since 1992.
Right, but your group operating and building, constructing in this region, when did that start?
I work for the city of Corpus Christi.
Oh, yeah, sorry, this group, sorry, specifically.
Okay. This would be the first project for Danco and their partners in the city of Corpus
That's what I was trying to get, okay, so we have, I'm like, this seems like a new name, and and you're giving me answers that are confusing me.
I was also
I'm like,
confused.
are they really going, that fish pond, are these guys? Sorry, that was confusing me.
I'm sorry. The city of Corpus Christi does this about once a year, sometimes twice a year.
Yeah, and this is our first time working with this group.
Yes. This is the first time working with this group. But I do want to say that The process through the low-income housing tax credit application is incredibly intense. It is not for the faint of heart, and you have to have all of your ducks in a row. So in order to get a tax credit allocation, you're not fly-by-night.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are literally IRS dollars that we're talking about, so you can about imagine what the rules are with it, right? So we don't necessarily select the developer. The city provides resolutions of support to anybody that's going to meet our zoning criteria or the future land use in the area development plan, and then we let the scoring take place at the state level.
Right. So they have been operational in the state, or this is their first time being operational in the state?
Operational in California and Arizona, correct, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. We're 38 years in business doing affordable housing. We're working in Arizona, California, Texas, and that's primarily it, in Oregon as well.
Okay. So I have two questions, and it may be my naivety speaking.
That's okay.
But the first being, it seems to be in the city's best interest that we have second place on any lien as opposed to third, that we would put ourselves up the highest. Our loan is relatively small compared to the rest. And so if we are going to protect our investment, we probably need to protect it as aggressively as we can. Secondly, I would question whether or not we can put a pin in this particular vote until we have their costs from actually them putting the bid out and knowing what those costs are. To me, and again, this could be my naivety, but it seems a bit backwards to award funding before we have a true cost of construction.
So if I can address both of those points, the second lien and the third lien, the second position and the third position would be between Type B and the Home Investment Partnership Program, so the city loan or the Type B program.
Okay.
So whether Type B is in second position or the home funds are in third position, that would be
That helps
That would
me,
be
yeah.
fine on the way in the for the home program. So we can structure it that way without a problem. The holding this vote until the hard costs are in, the chances of keeping the partners and the financing without an additional piece, knowing that we haven't signed any loan documents, it is unlikely that we can keep everybody at the table without starting to fill this gap. So I don't know that.
Can you break that down for me? Again, I'm not as familiar with this process,
Sure.
so I would love to understand better.
By not filling the gaps, it is possible that the tax credit investor starts to get nervous and pulls.
But my understanding is that they technically do have contingencies to fill the gap with or without us. We would just be holding off until we get a reasonable, at cost of construction before knowing what we were able to commit to that. Am I asking something that sounds unreasonable, or is it making sense?
No, I do think.
Or do they not have a contingency in place?
They do have a contingency,
Okay.
but in order to be underwritten by the lender and the tax credit equity provider, that contingency has to be in the project as well as other gap financing. To not allocate the $1 million from the Type B corporation and to say they have a contingency that's going to cover it is going to short them on the contingency aspect of the underwriting, and the tax credit investors are very strict as to what's included, and including the TDHCA, into what's in reserves and what's in
So
contingency.
this is about securing the tax credit equity.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, it's not so much about the bank itself, it's about the tax credit equity.
To
Yeah.
keep the tax credit investor at the table, yes.
Okay,
They have to
That's
see
good
that
to know.
all of the lines are covered, including the contingency.
okay.
Can I help too here? But it's also there's a construction loan in the amount of 19 million and a permanent loan in the amount of 6.3 million. Those are hard debt bank loans that are also coming to the project. And the tax credit investor and the lenders, they won't move ahead with the project and the underwriting to position us for closing unless we have all of our gap financing secured and committed. So if we were to postpone this, we couldn't move ahead with the project. We would be stalled.
I have a question, and it's more of a process question, but when we approve funding for economic development, it's contingent on jobs, and there's an audit on those jobs, and every year that's how we make sure those funds are appropriately awarded. Is there any sort of audit on expenses tied to these projects to make sure that the $1 million that we're giving and the $1 million that's coming from the home funds is contributing to an asset that is costing $24 million?
There's an official cost certification that's required by the IRS to qualify for the tax credits at the end of the project.
Okay.
Okay.
I believe that's taken care of by a third-party auditor.
And, okay, so it's a third party that comes in and does an audit of actual hard construction costs.
Because that's part of how they figure out what the official eligible basis is and determines what they get for tax credit equity throughout the 10 years of the project.
Okay, so I know we've been concerned about additional overages, but say if it came in substantially under, we're not just funding to additional profit. There's an audit on that?
It wouldn't necessarily be to additional profit, but it depends on what it went to. For example, if the cost if they were under on anything that was considered eligible basis for the tax credits, they would get less in tax credits, and we would still have to be in at the full $2 million investment through Type B in the city. It is possible that the $1 million from Type B or the $1 million from home could be less if, in fact, the eligible basis for the tax credits stays, and they were still under. So
Okay.
it depends on where they're under.
Okay, so, but there is some sort of formal audit conducted
Yes.
by a third party?
Yes.
An IRS audit over the project
it is-
at the completion?
It is for tax credit compliance, yes. It's called a cost certification.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. There's also monitoring to TDHCA standards every year for compliance. We'll monitor also due to the home funds.
I guess just, and Victoria kind of asked about it a little bit, but how do we come up with the interest rate pricing on this specific loan? Is this industry standard?
It is what we have historically done over the last several years for the project. We are trying to stay consistent until the Corpus Christi Housing Finance Corporation and the Corpus Christi Housing Authority have agreed to fund a housing study. When that housing study is done, there's also going to be a toolkit. It is possible that the way we structure these loans will change after that, but we want to stay consistent until those numbers are back, because we don't want to treat them any differently than we have the projects in the last couple of years. We're just staying consistent until we have that back, and we expect that to be done in we're selecting the contractor now.
So the city does not adjust its interest rates on contracts like these based on everything happening in the world around it.
No.
We exist as if we are in a fantasy vacuum where no costs increase anywhere except for our project.
Well, so we have stayed consistent at 3% due to the appetite of folks like you. From a policy perspective, it is possible that 3% is not necessarily feasible. It is not necessarily in line with what other communities do. Depending on the project, other communities put in different types of money, and they do it at less interest. But this is what we have historically done. The housing study is going to come and tell us what we need to do for our market. Our operating costs are actually a little higher, and our rents aren't as high, so operating in this environment is pretty difficult, because when you compare the rent to, say, the property insurance, you're not left with a lot of give.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, we really try to look out for the people that when we're looking at these low-income housings, and this is targeted for seniors, so especially so. And, we are calling it low income. And for the most part it is, but 60% AMI is still over the median income for a senior just by a bit. It could allow for those a bit over.
Okay, I'm going to correct you.
50%, it allow over 50% AMI. I see that those
So
units targeting the
can I get the PowerPoint back?
lowest incomes are also, of course, the fewest units. And we're looking at around 23 of those, if I have that right. 23?
So in the 30%, there are 8 units. In the 50%, there are 15. And in the 60%, there are 52. But can I go back to something that you said? You said something about the 60% units being over market. They are not.
Not over market. I would never have used the word market for that. I meant I said median income. That's
Okay.
slightly above median income.
Okay, so if you want the median income, you can take the 50% times 2, or the 60% limit is 60% of the median. So all of these incomes are below median.
Okay, that's good to know. That's what I'm trying to hone in on.
It's okay, so it's 30% of area median income.
Gotcha.
I didn't put my AMI on there, so 50% of area median income. And if you want to know what the median is, take your 50% times 2.
Right. So we're looking at median, not the mean. So not average income for this area, but the median, which makes sense. I'm just trying to make sure that we're keeping track of this.
And so sorry to interrupt.
No, you could please go.
The median income for seniors is at just under 58,000,
This is the median for the Corpus Christi MSA area,
the Corpus Christi MSA.
regardless of whether you're a senior or a family. Now, what we've done is taken households of 1 and 2 persons, which are most likely our senior households.
Okay, and so the one person median income is at 57,900?
Is that 58.9 times 2?
It's that 28,950 times 2.
There you go. One
Okay.
person, that would be the median income.
And where are those incomes published? Are they changed annually?
They're adjusted annually. These I took from the TDHCA website for incomes and rent limits. There's a calculation that goes on based on data that comes out of HUD. And again, their rents and incomes are adjusted annually.
And so you're looking at the median income for 1 and 2 person households specifically, or median income for everyone regardless of size of household?
So because this is a senior deal, the chances that the tenants will be 1 person or 2 person households, because we're talking about households with 55 or above.
Right.
That we're probably not going to get a family of 4 with small kids. So for illustration purposes here today, I've shown 1 and 2 person households.
I understand. I'm just trying to look at what median income you're looking at, specifically if it's just the median income for the area with no I can't speak English now.
That's okay, I'm having a hard
It's
time.
Monday.
No, the funding
No difference
sources,
between who, or if you are breaking it out into median income per household.
you can see here the income limits for a 1 person household versus a 2 person household.
Okay.
It does change through the number of people that are in the home.
Okay.
It goes out to 8 or 9 people, and then you have to start doing your own math. But for illustration purposes today, considering this was a senior deal, I used 1 and 2 person household because that is most likely who will be the tenants.
That makes sense. Sorry if it seems like we're
No.
grilling. I just want to
I
understand
think
this
this is
fully
our
before
first time
actually
going around it.
voting.
I am also tangled today, so. we're good.
Okay.
What other questions do you have?
Well, it really just comes down to, is there any possibility that we could have more of those units for the seniors who have the greatest need?
Sure. Would you like to put additional funding into the project to buy down their debt? Can I go back to that slide, please? The one you just
Well, I'm saying because they're asking for additional funding now.
Okay.
Does that additional funding, could that make possible more, changing some units into others that assist those seniors with the greatest financial
Okay, you're
need?
talking about income targeting. What you're asking for is for deeper income targeting in the lingo, right? So if you look at folks who are renting at 30% of the area median income, the property is going to collect on a 1-bedroom $465 a month minus tenant-paid utilities. Let's call it tenant-paid utilities $65. So the property is going to collect $400 per month per
Yes.
One bedroom, right? Okay. Now compare that to the 60% rent where the property is going to collect $930 minus tenant paid. Let's call it $900. So the difference between renting to somebody at 30% AMI and renting to somebody at 60% AMI is $500. $500 a month times X number of units equals a certain amount of debt capacity that the property can borrow. Does that make sense? So for every 30% unit, we have to be able to reduce their debt payment by whatever capacity was built by $500 per unit. That starts to add up pretty fast. So in order to get more units at 30%, more subsidy has to be put in because they cannot borrow that money because they've lost income. If we reduce the incomes, the property insurance still has to get paid at the same rate. The guy who mows the lawn still has to get paid at the same rate. Does that
Yeah, I understood that from the beginning. My question simply was, do they have wiggle room in their budget to add an additional unit for someone lower down because they are coming to us asking for additional funds from type B at this point?
The pro forma that they're required to do does not allow for that unless
Okay.
there's additional subsidy.
That was the end of, that was the answer I
Okay.
needed.
Okay. Any other questions?
Great conversation. A lot of good questions. Regarding that study that you were talking about, when's the time frame on that ETA to be completed, more or less?
We're guessing about 9 months. The responses just came in this month. We're probably interviewing candidates next month, and then once they're on board, about a 9-month. So
End of next year?
next fiscal year, yes.
Okay. And how much has the city dedicated to this project thus far?
This project?
Yes.
We have $1 million of home funds committed, but we have put no dollars into it. We are spending about $4,500 to complete a HUD-required environmental review that our administrative funds from the home program will cover.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
And this is just for the sake, I think I know the answer, but I think it's important to ask. If we go back and say, we're not interested in funding this $1 million, and they basically have said they will not defer any more of their development fee to continue to do the project?
Okay. So they are only allowed to defer the amount of developer fee that the cash flow can cover over the course of 15 years.
Okay, it has to be repaid in 15 years.
It is required to be paid back. If they increase their deferred developer fee, they have to increase their income.
Yeah. I forgot about the 15 years.
It's okay. I forget too.
Okay.
What was the loan increase achieved with the additional 5 units above affordable housing?
So can you put this back on? Okay, so the increase in construction cost was about 2.5, and the loan increase was 2.2. Where the $1 million from the type A is coming from is going into that Boston Financial Low-Income Housing Tax Credit equity line, where we're short about $1.4 million due to the drop in the tax credit equity pricing.
Any further questions? Okay. No, you're,
Great
no,
questions.
yeah, I need to open it for public comment at this point. Have we received any public comments, or is there anyone here to speak on its behalf?
No written public comments, ma'am.
Okay. With that, I'm going to close public comment. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number I, our presentation items. We have item 6, engineering services quarterly update.
Good afternoon, Madam President, board members. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. And we come before you once a quarter and report statuses on the projects that we are managing, that the city is managing, that have been funded with Type B or A funds. And we've split the presentation. Hopefully we've got them in the right baskets, but I'm going to do the same thing at the next meeting. This first project is actually right next door to the project we've just been talking about. This is the Huntwick Avenue project. All the lanes are open now. They're buttoning up construction. They're going to be complete next month is what we're projecting. And probably going to leave some funding that'll go back to your fund and balance after we close that project out. And the project we were just talking about is on the top left part of this image. And the public roadway ends right there where the pavement changed. If you remember, it was asphalt before, and it was in pretty bad shape. That was actually platted and dedicated as a public street. So the portion that was a public street, we reconstructed that. This is, they call it Industrial Park. This has also been called Rod Village. It was actually the industrial part of the old Rod Field Navy base. And when they closed that down, they auctioned off all the buildings in there individually. So it was kind of uncontrolled development. Some of the streets were real bad. And so this looked at 4 of those streets, reconstructing those. We're probably about 2/3 complete on construction and projecting final completion in April. McCampbell Road is another project that received some Type B funding. I think the Type B commitment is $6 million of this. It's also got bond funds and utility money. We've got bid documents almost ready to go. We've had a plan to have some off-site detention on this project, and we've been having some issues with the real estate acquisition. And we're going back and forth. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to accomplish that as part of this project. But normally when we're doing a road reconstruction, we try to get all the underground done correctly and do it once. So there is some flooding issues within that area. And we're trying to address all of that at once. But that's why that project's taking a little bit longer than we had originally hoped. Bear Lane is under construction. That's one where we've identified some design money, but we haven't identified the construction money. But we just kicked off that design project a few months ago, and we're expecting to get the first deliverable in January. Williams Drive, this is another project that we've got design money identified, but not a lot of construction money. We're expecting a 30% design submittal in March of '26. This is Williams between Rodfield and Lexington and SPID. It's that vacant property that sits there. It's where that new entertainment complex is going in. Harbor Playhouse, this is actually just Type B funding. I don't think it was A and B. It's Type B, $4.9 million. And the HVAC part of this, we've got a central chiller system that's at the convention center that also provides chilled water to the Art Museum, the Harbor Playhouse, and the Science and History Museum. And we're looking at taking all of those facilities off of that and putting them on their own cooling system. And then ultimately we're going to replace the HVAC system at the convention center. As part of that, we've also got some other just general building improvements that need to be made. And that project is about at 90% design, and hoping to get that under construction middle of next year. This is one that's been around for a long time, and we've had a lot of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back on this. But on the waterfront, from the Science Museum all the way down to the Art Museum, there's some structural issues with that we'd like to get corrected, and we've got funding allocated for it, but we haven't really been able to stack hands with the port. It's on their property on the vision for what this ultimately needs to be. And that building that's in between the Science Museum and the Art Museum is Corps of Engineers office, and the port is actually in the process of trying to acquire that. So I have a meeting, the city manager and I are meeting with the port this week. They're actually interested in trying to take over this project from the city, so I'll probably have an update to report back on that after the next update we give.
Is this the project where there was the port front park? I guess, for lack of a better term, there was a park that was being discussed, and then along the seawall was going to be walking spaces and gathering spaces. Is this the same project?
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
This project, I would say the original conception on this is probably 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was originally contemplated to kind of develop this kind of like it is at the Art Museum. You know, you've got this wide concrete space that comes out and then just stops. So one concept was to extend that all the way down, incorporate some landscape architecture features, and subsequently there was questions about, okay, you know, the port is interested in acquiring that property. You know, how should we share that? Should we really be investing a lot of money in improving somebody else's property potentially? Another driver for this is that there's some deficiencies there structurally. And if you went back about 2012 timeframe, FEMA was kind of threatening the city that if you didn't address all of the floodplain deficiencies, whatever their flood elevation outside the seawall was going to be the map elevation inside the seawall. They backed down on this. I thought when I took this job 10 years ago that we were going to be in a position that we'd get a flood map that would be unacceptable to us until we actually did a construction project to improve the seawall or flood wall at the Science Museum, which is kind of an Achilles heel with this whole flood protection system. It wound up, FEMA blinked on it, and they agreed to a floodplain elevation downtown that we were able to live with without having to do the project. So that project's still out there, needs to be done, and it is vulnerability, and you know, we would like to get that addressed. And whether it's the city that does it or the port that does it, there is at a minimum some construction that needs to take place there at the Science and History Museum to shore up that flood wall.
So do you think, given that you and the city manager are meeting with the port on the next quarterly update, we might have some idea of how this project's going to move forward?
Absolutely. We might give you an update ahead of that. But I think what they're going to ask, and I've had some meetings with them, they're interested in trying to take that over. They're wanting to say, look, if you give us part or all of the money, we'll do a list of things in exchange for that. So I think that's what they're going to propose, but we'll see.
Okay, so we will wait for an update from you before we.
Yes, ma'am. Right now we're kind of in a holding pattern on this one. We haven't defined the project enough to really start with a design process.
Okay, thank you.
This one is, there's not technically a project for this. This is a little bit of money that we put in each year to fund a project to deal with kind of maintenance deficiencies on the seawall. So this is sort of, you can think of it like a sinking fund. There's money that's allocated each year from Type A to just take care of the seawall. So we have currently $5.3 million in there, but we don't have a project that's under design at current for that. The last one we completed was about, I want to say 4 years ago. We did an upgrade and addressed a lot of deficiencies, concrete cracking, spalling, things like that. So we do have that funding available to turn the crank on that and make any needed repairs. Well, that's it for my update. You'll get to hear something similar here in a little bit.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to executive director comments. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have a report?
No, ma'am, not today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we adjourn, I want to welcome our newest member. I guess she's been on the board, but here, Ms. Claudia Mostagashi. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you. All right, there being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.